postmarked Fort Hembry in the 1840s. The same thing with Fort Montgomery, Fort Lindsay, which was at Almond, Fort Montgomery was at Robbinsville. But most of those places, towns sprang up on top of. They may have decided there were some issues about converting this to public use. The Army may have owned this place. Or somebody might have just been staying here and got careless.
Could you use any kind of sonar?
Yeah. And some of the things that we want to do here, we want to do remote sensing across the whole area. The metal detection is sort of a low-tech remote sensing, but it's very effective and very immediate and very interpretable. But what we want to do in the future is also do remote sensing. We'll do gradiometry, which looks at variable magnetism in the soil. And gradiometry will be a problem because what it really, if there's any metal, it just keys on that. You know, so this whole area would look like one big hot spot from gradiometry. What would be more effective is probably ground penetrating radar, but you have to clear an area out like this in order to use that, because you're actually dragging an instrument across the surface with that. That's one thing we'll want to do, and get some idea of what sort of subsurface structure there is. All of these cellars, all of that stuff will just pop right out with ground penetrating radar. Another thing that we want to do here, because this has never been plowed, there are any kind of redundant use of an area. If you do things over and over again, that creates a chemical signature. The example I give that's very understandable, I think, is that these soldiers came out of these barracks at night. They didn't walk all the way to the train. They walked around the corner of the barracks. You go where the corner of the barracks is, and you get a soil sample there, and compare it to samples of soil all around it, you're going to see this huge spike in nitrogen, potassium, and all this stuff where all these guys went out to pee. And any kind of redundant activities like that would create differential soil chemical signature. And so one thing that would be just tremendous to do here, and I hope that we have the luxury to do that, is to get soil samples at close intervals all across this whole area, and then analyze them for elemental chemicals, and look at how that's distributed versus the location of the buildings and the distribution of artifacts and all that, and begin to understand something about redundant use of space. I have a graduate student now who's doing that with a similar undisturbed site that's in South Carolina, and to good end, with great results. Imagine the example I gave her, to help her conceptualize this, besides the people being outside the building, is when I was a kid, when we killed hogs, there was always one limb of a big tree that we hung the hogs up on to scrape them. Okay, that limb sort of determined where that was going to happen. So that happened over and over again. So all of that hair, all those hog bristles, for years and years and years, went there and rotted on the ground.
Do you think there's any bodies out here? Will you be able to?
There are bodies somewhere. We don't know where they hid the bodies, but there are bodies out there. There are, in fact, there are some graves that local tradition says are soldiers. 6 graves that are on the other side of 68. Local tradition says these guys died of the bloody flux, which is pretty bad sounding, but a common ailment at that time. Utiye, the Cherokee woman from Tusquity, and probably a number of other Cherokees perished here. We don't know where they were buried. They may be buried in the same place. We're not sure when the Coker Creek Cemetery got started, but it looks like the very center of that started very early, and there's an old roadbed that goes from here to there. So that may have started at the same time as the course. Oddly enough, the post records, we have monthly reports from this post. Post records don't tell us anything about any soldiers dying. They tell how many are sick and, you know, not present for action, but we don't have any record of folks dying. Those post records only go through March of 1835. So it may be that, you know, we had some mortality in subsequent occupation.